The purpose of our project was to create a memorable experience while learning some real-life skills. So naturally, we built a raft. We practiced our interests of money management and the laws of physics to build a cost-efficient and hydrodynamically efficient raft that would allow us to be competitive in an organized raft race during the annual Chestertown Tea Party Festival.
First, for a little history lesson. In 1767, Parliament passed taxes on the colonies that would raise the price on certain goods such as paper, paint, lead, glass, and tea. The people in the colonies had such a negative reaction to these taxes that Parliament repealed most of the taxes, but a few remained, such as the one on tea. After the colonists refused to buy tea and English merchants began to lose money, Parliament passed the Tea Act of 1773. Because the colonists believed that this infringed on their liberty, they were furious. On December 16th, a group of rebels called the Sons of Liberty dressed up as Mohawk Indians and boarded 3 ships in the Boston Harbor. They then proceeded to dump 10,000 pounds of tea into the ocean. While this was the most popular and well-known of such uprisings, this was just one example of many different rebellious acts that occurred in reaction to the Tea Act.
Almost half a year later, on May 23, 1774, a small group of men boarded an English vessel and threw off their shipment of tea into the Chester River. Today, this event is commemorated by hosting a festival in Chestertown, Maryland that includes a reenactment, a party, and of course, the raft race. The Tea Party Festival was created by the Chestertown River Association to raise awareness about the conservation of the river and is currently in its 39th consecutive year.
For our raft, we made a plan that included a budget of $300, the purchase of 3 55-gallon drums to keep our combined 1,200-pound bodies above the water. This raft would be constructed by connecting the drums to the bottom of plywood in a triangle shape, with miscellaneous household bottoms in the middle. However, after our first meeting with our combined recycled materials, we found that we collected way more bottles and containers than we thought we would. This included 28 4.3-gallon jugs with a numerous amount of 2-liter bottles. After making some calculations, 1 liter equals 2 pounds, we discovered that we had enough buoyancy to support all of our weight using nothing but recycled materials. This cut our costs from $300 to $44.60, which is 15% of our original budget.
The final blueprint for the raft is based on a 2-pontoon setup, with 2 main structures that carry the majority of the buoyancy on opposite sides of the raft. This is where the 4.3-gallon jugs would come in. We created a makeshift pontoon by duct taping 14 of the jugs together to see how well they would float. Test 1 was a success. We took the raft out onto the Patuxent River at Scotts Cove, and it was able to support 2 people above the water. However, the test made us realize that duct tape could not be a permanent fixture in the design, as it was flimsy and not waterproof. So after a talk with Mr. Wilson, we agreed that the only way to ensure the stability of the pontoon structures would be to support them using wood. The only problem with wood was that it would need to be sealed, so that it would not add more weight as it got wet.
So after a short trip to Home Depot, we picked out wood that would conveniently fit through the handle of the oil containers, and after it was sealed and left to dry, we were able to secure the wood in one pontoon by connecting the 2 pieces of wood on the ends to prevent the jugs from moving. With the supporting wood, we were able to test the buoyancy of our reinforced structures by putting 3 people on it. And after various tests for mobility and speed adjustments, we made one more pontoon with the second half of the 4.3-gallon jugs.
With both of the supporting pontoons put together, we took another trip to Home Depot to try to find a flat piece of wood that would fit on top of the pontoons and would ultimately become the top of our raft. Unfortunately, all the pieces of plywood were either too small or too expensive. To see if we were getting the best deal for the amount of wood that we needed, we spoke with a store employee who directed us to a piece of 8x6 fencing that could be purchased at 70% off of its original price.
After attaching the fencing to the pontoons that we made, we tested it out once again on water and decided to push it to the limit. We discovered that it could hold 4 out of the 6 members of our group, but The middle of the raft lacked structural support and lacked the buoyancy to hold all of the members of the group. So after bringing it back to CJ's house, we made the structural adjustment of adding wood underneath the weakest parts of the fence and fixed the issue of buoyancy by attaching the remaining bottles that we had collected to the middle of the raft by adding cross-section of nylon rope over the trash bag that the bottles were contained in.
The paddles were created under the supervision of Mr. Wilson with the bandsaw. This allowed us to create very sleek and precise cuts in a very timely manner. We took the raft out to the river and found that we could hold all 6 members of our group on our raft with enough space in between to comfortably maneuver and row during the race. On our raft with enough space in between to comfortably